Okay, I'll call to order the regular council meeting, or Nisswa City Council meeting for Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. If everyone would please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item on our agenda is we have an amended agenda. If everyone has that, there were, I believe, 3 items added. So if I can get a motion to approve the amended agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the amended agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The second item is the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent calendar as notated.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Open forum. First item on open forum is public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience that wishes to make a comment about an item that is not on the agenda. If you're going to want to bring something up and it's on the agenda, we'll give you an opportunity at that time. So anyone here with the public comment? Seeing none, we'll go to department presentation, fire department annual report. Chief Bailey.
Good evening.
No, now you can hear me, can't you? So here's our open house from the summer, just a picture we took from a distance. We did our open house this year in conjunction with our barbecue contest over at the community center. We plan to do that again this coming year. So if this thing will do it. Here's our roster. Right now, our roster consists of about 26 guys. Myself being the chief, we got Joe as the assistant chief. I've got 3 captains and the rest are firefighters. In your packet that I handed you that was printed has our year-end annual report. So you guys a little more in detail for you. So this is just gonna be short and sweet. Community events, we do our safety town. We help out with that in the summer. Fire awareness, we go over to the elementary school, take our trucks, take the kindergarten class back to the fire hall, go over all of the equipment on our trucks, then we give them a ride back or they walk back or vice versa. But either way, all the kindergartners get a ride on our truck to our fire hall. The annual fishing derby happens President's Weekend during the Jubilee, and that's held on Nisswa Lake. We do that every year. The Brainerd Outreach Program over here with Sean Hansen, we've gotten really involved with that. We try to pack food 2 to 3 times a year. This year we did it 3 times. And this coming year, of course, we'll probably do it another 3 times. And then touch a truck event during our open house. We always invite the kids to come touch a truck. We try to involve the city with that, with their plow trucks, excavating companies with their equipment, so forth, just to get the community involvement. And we've already talked about our barbecue competition. Training highlights this year, we've done some ice rescue, forcible entry, roof ventilations, pump operations, driver operations, vehicle extrications, and of course, we train in medical response. We do a ton of medicals. We've had 597 training hours this year. Our department has given the city and training for our department. So we're trying there. The next one will give us our calls, I believe, if it goes. So this one is very hard to see. So if you go to like page 6 in your little thing, in your packet, you can see it a little bit better. It breaks it down to which which one does everything. So we're going to skip on to calls for service by incident and district. Nisswa had 201 calls last year. Lake Edwards had 128. Lake Shore had 73, and we went to Pequot twice for mutual aid. And that's right here. Nope. As you see, our summer months, our calls are pushing in the 60s. In the winter, we're hovered in that 20 range. And here's the overall. We had a total with training and fire hours of 3,101 hours was given from our guys to the community for volunteering, helping in emergency services. Our focus this coming year is training of new firefighters. We have 3 of them. Recruitment and retention of members. That's a huge goal. As you know, keeping employees is hard. Keeping firefighters on the department is extremely hard. Fundraising grants efforts for our new brush truck. We'd like to see a new brush truck in the future. We've applied at Firehouse for a grant. Just raising money, bits and pieces, trying to get there. And then we're also increasing usage of modern technology, like our iPads are helping us so we don't carry ERG books anymore. Vehicle extrication, we're using iPads to know where to cut, not to get in trouble with airbags and so forth. So that's our quick and easy way. Like I say, in our packet, it's very, very detailed for you. You guys have any questions for us?
You say new brush truck, Sean, what exactly are you looking at for a brush truck? Like a
Uh,
350 or?
Yeah, probably a 1-ton.
Okay.
Because if you look on the annual report, if you look at now, our current brush truck
Mhm.
is on page 2 of that portion of it, is 21 years old. But we're doing fundraising for that. We're gonna see if we can fundraise that. We were able to fundraise enough for a new command vehicle. So we're hoping to be able to do that for the brush truck.
Any other questions for the chief? Thank you very much.
Hey, no
Appreciate
trouble.
it.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is report, city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Good evening, members of the council. I don't have anything to report outside of some of the new business items I have later on the agenda, but happy to answer questions if you have any.
City attorney.
Good evening. Same answer for me. I've got a couple things coming up on the agenda, but nothing aside from that.
City engineer. Okay. So that brings us to F, new business, Winter Jubilee Committee, I believe, Terry.
Good evening. So
Yes,
I
sir.
am representing the Nisswa Jubilee Committee. The Jubilee, Nisswa Jubilee is a city event, not a chamber event. So what I'm asking for is closing down of Main Street during the parade, kind of like they do for the 4th of July. So it'd be 2 cars and then barricades at probably the entrance to 18 going by the bank. And we didn't have anything to do last year with COVID, but usually the parade lasts half an hour. It's not a very long parade. Usually involves most of the fire trucks, firemen, a few things like that. Nisswa Color Guard from the Legion, a few other things. So it's not a very long parade.
So Terry, what time would you
Oh,
be
sorry.
closing?
Yeah, it's at noon. So noon to 12:30, probably 12:45 on that Saturday.
Do you need it blocked off sooner than noon?
Well, lineup is at the 11 o'clock at the Legion.
Okay,
So probably 11:45 would probably be good enough. Everybody gets there early and parks anyway, so it's not,
right.
And have you discussed logistics with city departments?
as far as,
Well, support for closing off the street or getting barricades or,
well, I
All
would
those
probably
things.
deal with maintenance,
Yeah.
get the barricades from them.
Yeah.
I've got plenty of help. So the main thing would probably just have the 2 officers.
Okay.
Or 2 squad cars.
Should check with the police department too.
Yep, no.
Okay.
Tom Blommer should be back from vacation by then. We'll be able to deal with him, so. Or Mike. They're both great to deal with, so.
So basically you need to shut down for that time period. You'll relay that to the chief or to the police department and then get with Public Works.
Yep.
They'll get their stuff pre-positioned like they usually do and whatnot. You're gonna be having any kind of satellites downtown or anything?
I'll have 2 at the Piccolo and I might have 2 over by the chamber, just to relieve their inside bathrooms there.
Okay, do you need any parking spots blocked off for those before they get?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, all right.
No.
Okay,
Joe from Files Hunting Wagon's really easy to work with, so.
okay. So from us, you wanna,
Motion and a
Block.
second.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion that we grant that blockage of the street to hold the parade on Main Street on February 19th, 2022.
I'll second.
okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
There you go, sir. Fire Relief Association request to increase benefit amount. Where's my stuff? Okay.
Andy from Nisswa Fire, President of the Relief Association. We had a slide for that, but we're requesting an increase to 110% like we have in the past. It's 110.87% at 5,700 per year served.
I'm having trouble hearing you, Andy. So can you?
Yeah, there you go.
We're requesting an increase to 5,700 per year served after 20 years. That's 110.87% of our fund.
Okay.
The same percentage we were at prior.
Okay. Well, I had a couple questions for you, Andy, on this. There was a series of questions the council had asked for, I don't have it with me. Anyway, it was at the October workshop we had. There was a series of questions that we were looking for answers for. We had the city administrator send those to you. We didn't receive any answers. There's 7 questions here. Was there an issue with the questions, or do you know why we didn't receive?
No, we just thought it would be best to answer the questions publicly, so if you want to just fire away with the questions. We just thought it'd be best to do it in public, and we also brought in a couple experts to help with some of the questions, maybe provide a more detailed answer for you. Sometimes translation gets lost in an email. So if you want to fire away, go for it.
Well, my first question on that is, we could have done, we wanted to try and meet with that, but okay. We wanted to meet with you guys again, and that would have been a better time to do that, but you guys haven't, you want to make a decision, or do you want to ask the questions? What do you want to do?
I'd like to ask some questions too.
Okay.
I would,
There was the series of 7 questions here. I guess for
John, might I offer maybe some of the council members' questions?
sure.
They could lead
Yeah.
off and then we
Let's do
can
that.
fill
Let's
in
start
if
with
there's
that,
any
yeah.
remaining. How's that?
Go ahead, Mark.
yeah, I wasn't at the workshop, so I guess I'm sort of
Sure.
learning about this a little bit more. I'm not used to this. But I noticed that right now we currently have $4,000, and I might be asking some very basic questions.
Sure.
Here. The $4,000, that's when you retire or when you're done, right? It's a yearly amount?
Correct. So it's based upon years served. So in order to be eligible for it, you have to be on for a minimum of 20 years.
Okay.
And then after that, it's just multiplied by years served.
Okay, so then, so it lasts for how long till you?
Till you retire.
Till you
Till,
retire?
till
No,
somebody retires.
you retire and then how long does it come? Every 4 years? Oh.
It's a lump
It's a lump sum.
No, it's
It's
just
a
a lump
lump
sum.
lump
sum
sum.
that comes
Yeah,
after
it's a
so
lump
many
sum
years.
payout.
Okay, I see. And then the other thing I noticed that there's, here it says projected value of assets. And that was to the end of this year. Do you know what the actual number is?
For this current year?
Yeah, for 2021?
Well, everything that we're basing it on and the numbers are actually off the audit of 2020,
Oh,
not
okay.
2021.
Oh, okay.
So it's off of year 2020.
Do you happen to have those numbers for 2021? What the current,
No, what we're giving you is off of 2020 right now. So
do your advisors or your account managers have the,
do you guys have a current update? Sorry, I always pronounce it wrong, but I'll give it my best. Stiefel. They are legal. Not legal. Or not legal, but they're our investment group.
Okay,
My name is Eric Davidge. I'm a financial advisor with Stiefel located here in town. I can give you any value you want, but the year end of 2020 that they're referencing was a closing value of $1,595,176.
that's at the end of
2020,
2020, right?
Yep.
And then the 2021 figures, do you have that yet?
2021 December was $1,891,227.
Okay. Great. And so this liability, the accrued liability side here is just for, so that's assuming, how do you calculate that out?
I guess what's your specific question?
The projected accrued liability, the liability of that, how do you calculate that?
Yeah, per year served.
Okay. So the value of assets is right now 1,891,000, and then the projected accrued liability this is just depends on how long you've served. And
Correct.
when you retire, you're just adding up how many people you expect to have that happen, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then I noticed that there's a funded rate, and it's even higher than what you have here, I assume. So it's not 149%, it's even higher now, 150 something, I'd assume. And then you're going, and the projection that you have, when you go down, there's a minimum required municipal contribution. I noticed that kicks in after a while. And so that is for, and that's not at the 110% rate, that's at, even if you go to 100% rate, it's still zero, and it kicks in a little bit later. How's that calculated? Sorry, these are very basic questions. I'm just getting used to this.
What is shown there is just a calculation at the funded ratio, so 110%. So it just gives basically a scale for you on, if you want to look on down at 100% rate, 99, 92, and what the municipal contributions would be if, let's say, the stock market takes a dip, right? And the city would be on the hook because we drop below our funding ratio, what the city would potentially have to pay.
Okay. So that's what would happen then. In other words, the city's just guaranteeing that if you bring the rate to that and it goes, the stock market crashes, the stock market goes down, we, Nisswa people would pay for that. All of us that live here.
Correct. And basically, there's a formula for that with the, with the state audits office. You know, there's some other criteria that's used with that to calculate what that is and when that happens.
Okay. Yeah, that's it for me for right now.
Mark? Where do you want me to go?
No, I just wanted, so I'm a tax-paying citizen in Nisswa.
Mhm.
I understand now I'm on the hook, city taxpayers, for 4,000 guarantee per person per year
Mhm.
drop. So justify to me as a taxpayer, not as a council member, how you foresee that you want to add now $1,700 more to what I'm guaranteeing.
Why would, so you're talking as a citizen, why would you pay $1,700 more?
Right.
Maybe I'm not understanding your question.
So when I tell, when citizens or neighbors that I know that are following this,
Okay,
and they say, how can they justify that? So I'm just asking as a citizen, not as a council member right now. So I'd like you to justify to me as a taxpayer, how I'm gonna, why I should be on the hook for $1,700 more per person per year. So that when I'm asked this question again, I can justify it to those that are asking me.
well, you as an individual wouldn't be on the hook for $1,700 more. The city,
Okay,
yes.
so where does the money come from?
Well,
The city's on the hook, but where does that money come from?
well, it either come from an account the city would have. The city could pay for it a number of different ways. You know, you could do a levy of some sort.
So that would be back on the taxpayers,
That'd be
right?
back on the taxpayers. You could pay it out of a general fund, but once again, there's some criteria for that with the auditor's office and in the statutes. But it's also only if it drops below, you know, the funded ratio, which generally occurs around that 90%. So it would have to drop. And then if you look at the contributions, so, you know, let's just say if I'm reading that right, it's 90%, it's like $3,800. So $3,800 spread across all the taxpayers. I don't know, there's 1,700 people in Nisswa. Divide that out by 1,700 people. You as a citizen would be on the hook for $2 or less at 90%. And so, I don't know, I think a $2 investment as a citizen is a pretty good investment for what we do in the presentation that Sean just presented, the amount of hours that we put in, the calls that we run, serving the city, you know. So you as a taxpayer, it's, you know, less than a cup of coffee. Does that answer your question, or do you have more questions on how it would impact the citizen?
Well, I did, maybe at what point does the city, so right now the guarantee is 4,000. You're asking that we go up to 5,700. 3 years, is that going to go up? Will it ever go down?
I guess you tell me what the stock market's going to do in 3 years. That's what it follows. You know, that's what it's based
Right.
off of. So
If I were to look at your portfolio right now, what percentage is in stocks?
62%?
You think that's a little high?
No.
Why not?
I've done this for 30 years, and this portfolio is managed on a perpetual basis, meaning that this portfolio, the way we view it, is deemed to last longer than anybody in this room is going to be alive.
What's riskier, stocks, bonds?
Depends upon what the economic environment you're in is. Generally, I would say equities are, but in the environment that we're in today, I could make a case or an argument that fixed income investments or bonds could be viewed just as risky as what equity investments are.
Are there any automatic adjustments?
We review the portfolio allocation on a quarterly basis. Our target allocation is a 60-40. And if we get skewed outside that 60-40 target allocation, we do make adjustments to bring it back in line with that 60-40 allocation. If we were to look and see some other reason why we might make a broader adjustment to the portfolio from an allocation standpoint, we would recommend it to the relief board.
And that's what when I'm talking about automatic adjustment, what I'm saying is, or asking, I guess, is if tomorrow, if you go into the office and the stock market just takes a dump,
Like today,
okay? And it takes another dump, keeps falling. You have to ask the board, the trustees, to have that adjusted, correct?
correct.
So you don't have anything, there's nothing in there right now for you to automatically do that without asking.
No,
Okay. You think that might be a good idea?
no.
No?
Our business doesn't work that way. It depends upon what type of relationship we have with the client.
Ah.
You can have an advisory relationship or you can have a brokerage relationship. We have a brokerage relationship, which means that we
Yep,
need a
yep.
physical or a verbal confirmation anytime we're going to transact any type of business.
Okay.
What you're talking about is like a discretionary relationship, and that we don't have that with the relief.
That's what I just wanted to get to. All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
I have one more, actually.
Go ahead.
What you're doing is you're coming to us to ask for this increase. Can you make this increase without us approving this?
Yes, we can make the increase without you guys approving it.
Uh-huh.
I guess the biggest thing for a city to stand behind it, I have done a little checking. There's only 3 towns in the state of Minnesota right now where their city doesn't stand behind their fire department.
Mhm.
And so the biggest thing, for you guys to stand behind the fire department is recruitment, support. I mean, it's a tool. Everyone in here is a volunteer. And so I guess it's a tool for you guys to keep a volunteer fire department versus, maybe you've looked and weighed the options of going full-time and the expenses occurred that way. But I guess the biggest thing I'd say is it's a recruitment tool for you guys for this whole service, to back it.
So basically what it sounds like, you have a pretty diverse portfolio, it sounds like. But as far as what you're really asking is that you want the city to guarantee this rate in case something happens, that the fund won't go bankrupt. We are guaranteeing that. That's what you're asking for, right?
Yeah, and I guess I probably wouldn't use the word bankrupt, but, once again, refer to the chart, depending upon the ratio,
Mhm.
And then also too, the stock market goes up, comes down, let's say the stock market dips and it recovers over the next couple of years. There's also a way for the city to be paid back,
Mhm.
using the funds and monies available. There's kind of a chart and a formula with that on how you guys would recap your money 3 years down the road, 2 years down the road, 1 year, whatever the time frame may be, if the market comes back and the fund recovers, I guess.
And then you would pay back the city for that?
Yes, there's basically there's a formula and a way to go about doing that, that's laid out by the state auditor's office.
Okay. I'm done.
I guess what I have a couple questions here. The city has no involvement in your investment strategy. That's all up to you guys to decide how you're going to do that. That's what I was told. So I'm going to say that, looking at you nod your head, that's a yes, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, okay. The city has a say in it?
Well, you guys have the two members, that are on the.
Right,
on
we
our
have two
board.
votes
Right.
on the board.
Right.
You know,
But you guys as a counselor or something don't,
do not, yeah.
right, yep.
You guys can adjust your benefits up, down, wherever you wish to go with it. And you don't need our approval. Am I correct in that? Is that?
Yep, you're
Okay,
correct.
yeah, right, okay. There was talk and this was in discussion that we had, council member Kramer, who was ill today, had mentioned this, that to stay at 110%, it may become necessary for the association. So if the fund dips too low, if stocks take a hit, whatever, but the fund dips too low for any reason, you can adjust your monthly or your yearly contribution. You can adjust it up or down, correct? So you
Right,
can
we
adjust
can-
it back down.
Yeah, we can vote to raise it. We can vote to lower it.
Okay.
Mhm.
And the comment that Ross had mentioned, or Councilmember Kramer said, is that there was a comment made that that's what you guys would do, was lower it if you had to.
Yeah,
That-
I
mean,
think
I don't
it's,
know. I'm just repeating what I was told, so I'm just wondering if that's accurate.
yeah, I think it's just like anything,
The Pierce
Eh,
Fire Department had done that, I know. But,
Yeah.
You know, so.
I mean, back in 2007, 2008, 2009,
Exactly. Yep.
different fire departments across the state did different things at that time,
Mhm. The city, I mean, the city can't hold you to that. I mean, we don't have any legal recourse to say, well, you said you would, if whoever at that time, whenever it is, decides, well, there's no reason to lower that. Why should we? We got there's other options. So we can't hold you to that. That's what we've been advised by our auditors and stuff. So back, and this was, and again, that was one of the questions that Councilman Jacobson had asked and whatnot. And I hate to plan, I don't like to plan for, but again, my concern is, I have to look out for the taxpayer as a whole too. And I'm just concerned, it was asked, Councilman Fraley asked it, but Don, I think, asked it much better. If I go to the taxpayer and God forbid, and I would hope that this wouldn't happen, there's a large dollar amount, larger than 3,800. I mean, let's face it.
Could you describe to me what you would consider a
If your
large
fund
dollar
went
amount?
belly up.
So what does that
my
mean?
fault,
When-
nobody's fault. It's gone.
It's completely gone, I guess.
It's gone, or
maybe-
it's even below 80%.
Maybe-
just whatever. I'm just,
Could I-
well, just let me finish my question. Okay, then why should the taxpayers assume the liability to make up the difference? We have to do it within the next budget cycle. And that was another one of the questions, was number 3 here that we had asked to be asked, was the timing, because a lot of times we have to set a preliminary levy in September. If something, God forbid, was to happen and we all of a sudden find out there's a problem, after September, we can't increase it. So levy's out the window.
Right.
So that really limits our ability to do that. I would like to see I would like to see the firefighters get whatever your fund can possibly give them. I would love to see that. Okay. And having done a little bit of research, police and fire para was in the same boat. We were so well funded that everybody decided, the state legislature decided they wanted to tap into it. They can't by state statute. But at that time, there was talk of changing the statute. Police and fire para started giving out massive They dropped their penalties for early retirement. They did a number of things, different organization, but same principle. Okay. The fund is now, because they did that, hurting bad. Police and fire para is in really bad shape, and it's been needing some, a lot of help from taxpayers, which personally I don't think is fair. And I'm on I'm on that pension, you know, I get that. So if you guys can raise and lower this, we're a safety net at 4,000. So at 20 years, you're gonna get a check for 80 grand. A check for 120 or 130 grand would be better. I agree. And I just, you know, I feel I've heard it from a number of firefighters. I've heard it from people who have had conversations that you guys feel like we're disrespecting you on this matter because we're asking questions. That's not accurate. We asked questions, we wanted questions answered, and I still think there's a way to move forward on this thing. I really think there's a way to increase every firefighter's compensation, if you will. There's a ways to do this, that I know there's a way forward here. And if you have the money there and it looks like your fund is strong, and from listening to your
Eric.
Mhm. Right? Okay, thank you. Listening to Eric, you guys it sounds like you are in touch with your investment personnel and you feel that this can continue like this. I don't know that I'm ready to commit the city and the taxpayer to be on this potentially having to shoulder an enormous debt when you guys can handle it right now and we can continue to educate ourselves. I think that we can all work together on communicating and educating each other, but I think there's a need to really look hard at this because just in talking with other mayors around the area that have dealt with this subject, not just that long ago, they wish they had known more than they do or they did. And it was obvious that I knew a lot more than they did. And that's scary because boy, I got a lot of learning to do on it because I don't know as much as I would like to. I think there's a way forward for us, but I don't know that without getting any answers on this, on the questions we posed, I don't know where we go with this thing right now tonight, other than to stay where I'm at. That's where I'm at with it. I stay where we're at, and then we continue to work towards the goal that you want to get to.
So can I just cut you off for a second?
Sure.
Just interject. So what I just heard you say is, you know, education's the key for everybody on both sides, right? Basically,
Part of it.
if I can sum it up,
Part of it.
education, and that you're worried about the doomsday catastrophic event, right?
That's
You
what
know,
I get paid to do.
At the last thing, you know, the $1 million figure was thrown out, you know, these huge dollar amounts are thrown out, right? So let's just stop and actually educate and look at what that actually means. Is $1 million loss even possible? I mean, the Great Depression's in the 30s, you know, can our stock, the way that we are invested, possibly even dip that far?
Can you predict the stock market?
I cannot predict the stock market, but what I can do is learn from past experience to look ahead and I guess make educated assumptions on the future based upon the past, you know, and I guess that's what anybody that invests in the stock market tries to learn from the past going ahead on their investments, just like what we're doing. And so, you know, these giant numbers have been thrown out there. You know, what happens if the stock market's gone tomorrow? I guess maybe, you know, I'd ask Eric if he has anything, to say, like what would happen, what would have to happen to the stock market to have it gone, just not specific numbers, but relative. I mean, we're talking a complete crash bigger than 1930 to have that whole market wiped out. I mean, to just go to zero. Yeah, so I'm asking you a question. Like for us to all of a sudden wake up tomorrow and have a zero balance in our account, what does that mean for the whole global stock market? Just
Well,
general form.
I mean, I've got to acknowledge the fact that that potential does exist. I mean, it does. I mean, anything exists. I think that would be the least of all of our problems to worry about this if that were the case, because I think we would all have numerous other financial and economic problems in this country. I mean, that's just my general opinion. So, I mean, to have it go to zero, I don't think that's a possibility, but it could happen. I mean, to acknowledge the fact that could it drop $1 million? Yeah, sure it could. I mean, I've witnessed corrections close to 50% twice in my career now. So could it happen? Yeah, I'm acknowledging the fact that it could. Does it happen very often? No, fortunately it does not. But I mean, it does exist. So I can't speculate on where I think the market, if I had a crystal ball, no offense to you guys, I wouldn't be standing in front of you here tonight.
Exactly.
I'd be sitting in my basement watching some kind of sporting event. So, so like I said, to acknowledge the fact that yes, the market can have and has had, precipitous declines in the past, and that it can happen at some point in the future. I'm no magician to be able to prognosticate what's going to happen a week from now, a month from now, or even 10 years from now. I can make educated decisions based upon the economic environment that we're in and kind of go from there. So that's my answer.
Thanks.
So
So I guess with that being said, I guess it's, I think at one of the meetings, when you guys came over there, you weren't there, but Jenny and Ross was there. My question back to you guys is, how do you as a city evaluate risk? And what are you comfortable with? What's your criteria on, is it a dollar amount? Is it a percentage? What is the city's criteria on risk? Is it just this look at a doomsday scenario saying, I don't want to touch this because what if? Or, do we want to sit down and look at some realistic numbers, the ratios, the charts, looking at the contributions, it drops down to 82%. We're talking $38,000. In my opinion, that's still a steal for any taxpayer out there, person paying in on taxes, or for the city to cough up for the service we provide and for the people in this room. I don't, I guess. I guess I don't know.
I just want to say one thing. So Eric has a fiduciary responsibility for the fund. Fund's doing great right now, close to an 18% increase in 1 year. I mean, that's decent. But I, as a council member, also have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of the city of Nisswa.
So what would be a great return in your mind?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm bullish. I'm bullish. I see 33% returns right now and have for the last 10 years. But what's a good return? It depends on, a lot of factors. I mean, some people are happy with a 5% return.
Well,
but 18
over when we're talking stocks and you can help us invest.
That's not my responsibility because one, I'm not a trustee. Two, you've got Jenny there. She's got a finance background. I mean, she could help you. Trustees can, but I think we need to move on.
Here's the thing, Mark. The fire department, their association, just like the city, are limited into what types of investments they can make.
I know that.
So there's, so that's really neither here nor there. So.
Right.
Was there anyone public-wise that wanted to make a comment? Anyone?
The one thing Joe's forgetting to say is that on that fund, if in the state auditor's office changed all this in 2013. So on that fund, if that fund drops where we're underfunded, which is 90%, they consider 90% funded, they like to see these funds stay at about 95%, 90 to 95% they think is perfect. We would like to go to 110%. But on those funds, if they drop below that 90% and we're underfunded, then the state auditor's office has a formula where we drop our retirement sum. You guys have to kick in some, but you only have to kick in 10% of what we're underfunded. So if we're underfunded by $500,000, you're writing a check for 50,000. Then the following years, you pay it back by not contributing the $15,000 that you contribute right now until you're paid back. So you're not writing a check, even at $1 million, you're only writing a check for $100,000. You're not paying $1 million.
And that's the formula that I referred to when I said there's the formula by the state auditor's office.
So that's why there's that difference. When you were talking about 100%, it was still zero.
Yeah.
And you have to get down to what, 90% or 90%. Yeah.
And
then it
that's
starts to kick
all
in.
change. And
That's what you meant.
Ross
see.
wouldn't know that because that all changed in 2013. So those are things that we're just learning ourselves. So.
Okay.
Well, okay, so here's where we're at. That would have been great to know, Rich, but again, it also would have been great to know as an answer to questions and stuff that we were trying to get earlier.
So just fire out and go down that sheet and ask the questions.
Not now. You know why? Because you got these questions asked you guys November 4th. And today is for making decisions. So we could sit here for hours, Joe, but that's why we wanted to have other meetings. And I do take it back. I assume what you meant by the city not supporting the fire department, you meant this decision. Or do you
I
mean
didn't
we
say the
don't
city-
support the, huh?
I guess I didn't say anything about the city
Okay,
supporting
because
that.
we support the fire department. Okay, there's just a lot of questions yet. And if anyone here has sat on a board of this nature, a city council or a county board, our job is to worry about, the worst case scenario. That's what I worry about. Okay, I always have. Okay, occupational hazard, let's call it. So I always worry worst case scenario. And do I think it'll happen? No. But I still have questions and we still want to work with you guys to figure out how we can maximize what you get. There's nothing stopping you guys from raising this contribution up to the $5,700. Okay, you can do it and your fund will support it and everything will be just fine. But I, for one, am not ready to move the city past the 4,000 at this point. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but until I have more questions answered and we sit down and we all talk about it, which is what we tried to do. Mark, do you have any more questions?
No.
I guess, John, one thing, the questions on your sheet, one of the questions, I mean, I remember off the top of my head, it was Don's question. Why should we support the fire department?
That's not what he said.
No, that's not what he said. Do you want me to read
Yeah.
the question?
It was one of
Yeah,
the questions he said right here in the meeting, and then Jenny emailed it out to us. I have the email from
The
Jenny.
relief should be able to answer Councilmember Jacobson's question about why the city should be the guarantor of the relief benefit amount. That was the question that Don wanted to know. He was asking for your guys' answer on that question, okay? That was just that was the question. He didn't say anything. He didn't say what you were alluding to, but, and our responsibility, is that to the taxpayers. So, I want to keep working on this thing. I want to keep meeting with you guys. I want to keep getting educated on it. The, auditors, formula you're talking about, okay? Ross was working on this with Jenny. Okay, Ross is sick. He's still recovering from the COVID. So he wasn't able to be here tonight, unfortunately. And of course, Councilman Jacobson is recovering at Miller Dwan from a broken pelvis. And so he wasn't able to be here tonight. So that was unfortunate, but
Yeah, I guess just from the fire department standpoint, we are now in a full year of meeting with you guys on this. and you know, it's been a full, complete year. And so, you know, from our point of view, I guess the question that we would like answered from the council is, what is an appropriate time frame to get something resolved if it's already been a year, and how many more meetings is that going to take?
Well, we're gonna make a decision at this time tonight with where we're at. And the opportunity to continue the discussion is always there.
So, but that didn't answer my question.
What's an appropriate time?
Yeah, what do you think?
The
an
appropriate
time
time frame is the amount of time it takes for the council to be convinced that we're not putting the taxpayers of the city in a very bad spot. That's the amount of time.
So is that, you know, you, back to what you had said, is that education, you know, on that, you know, looking into that formula at the audit's office? Do you guys have a plan on how that works? I guess what I'm asking is, you can say that, but I'm asking you to tell me how you're going to execute that.
I think for myself, you know, I've been sort of sitting here listening to all of this.
Right.
And from my personal perspective, you know, I always want to support the police and the fire department, both. And to me, what I'm seeing here is that we do support at this current level, at the 4,000 level that you have. But also, I know that this year was a very good year for the stock market. And it makes me a little bit nervous. You know, I'm hearing about all this pullback and the rates going up and all this, and that makes me nervous. And I don't want to commit all the Nisswa citizens to.
But I think let's just back up on that. This doesn't have anything to do with 2021. This is off of 2020. It's already closed out. And so actually, if you look at a real time money, we're still over the 110% funded with our real time money, because we're a full year behind.
I understand. I see that. But I'm worried about 2022, what will happen to the stock market. And the amount that is, I mean, there's nothing that would hold you back from going ahead and giving that benefit to your people, to the fire department employees at this point. And the only difference is that there's no safety net for you. Okay, so if you give it out, you might get burnt. Okay, I would say go ahead and give it out, but without putting the city on hook, at least for now. And then let's learn more. I need to learn more about this myself. But right now, I'm just nervous.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if anyone else has any other comment from the.
I think the nervousness should already be explained by the fact that you don't have to write a check for $1 million. You know, you're writing a check for 10% of that is what you're writing. We also, and you can look at the state auditor's office and look through all their reports. They have different reports or different formulas for every scenario. You know, you guys have to come up with the money. It's not like you have to write the check tomorrow if we're underfunded. In most cases, you're going to have the 18 months to do it. By then, the market's probably going to correct itself and everything's going to be fine anyhow. So you're not putting anybody on the hook for $1 million check. You might be putting them on the hook for $100,000 check. This city council wastes $100,000 in worse ways than that every month. It's, I mean, come on. You know, you're wasting money constantly
every month.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I don't.
But no, we all understand that. It's just, if you guys want to raise it, okay, if we keep our contribution.
We're gonna raise it without the backing of the city.
If we keep our contribution at $4,000, there's nothing stopping you to raising the benefits to 5,700. So and that's where I'm at right now,
You know, the money, like I say, you guys pay $15,000 a year. The rest comes from a 2% fund, and the rest comes from due diligence with Stiefel. And we meet with them guys a lot. We spend a lot of time talking with them guys on this stuff. So the money's there. It's not that it's not there. And yeah, I mean, the stock market can take a crap any day.
Then
but
why not just go ahead and do that? I mean, the money's
we,
there.
we can. We can.
Right,
You
we
got,
can.
like somebody said, you want to be the fourth city in the state to not back us up?
We
That's a
are
little bit
backing you up at
ridiculous.
this amount.
But I guess you're missing a bigger point with this, you know, this is all volunteer. What happens, you know, there's not exactly people banging down the door to get on the fire department. All of a sudden you don't have volunteers. What are you guys as a city going to do for your fire protection? All of a sudden now somebody wants to join the fire department. Hey, we're the fourth city in the state that the city doesn't back any sort of retirement. Come
that's-
here.
So now
Risk
what,
your
We're not
life and-
backing. Okay, enough.
Yeah.
We're done. We're gonna call.
Well,
it.
no, I mean.
No, we're done.
Tom, we back you with the 4,000
We're done.
and to say that we don't,
I'd like to get a motion on whether or not we wish on the matter. No, we're done.
I'd like
No,
a
no,
moment
we're-
as a
we're-
taxpayer.
No.
Please, I would like a moment as a
Mimi,
taxpayer, John.
Amy, you got 5 minutes.
My husband, Scott Mike Thurlow,
Yeah.
was on the fire department and you know that.
Mhm.
He sent me here today in a dream, said, go and support these firefighters
Mhm.
that go out every night practically. If it's not a fire call, it's an EMT call. And the city needs to support that.
Okay.
Totally.
Okay, Mimi,
I don't like, you said you gave me 5 minutes. I would like that 5 minutes.
well then, okay.
Okay. How many times, like they said, how many times does it take for you guys to understand things? Have you sat down in every meeting and read everything that was submitted from this fire department?
Yes.
Scott told me specifically that there's been a couple of people on the board that said, well, we didn't read it. Now, is that a lie?
that's, yeah.
I've read it.
No.
This
You're
current
Everything.
telling
council,
me I've read it, yes.
yeah, I've read it. I know Ross
From
has read it,
before?
and I know Donna's read it.
I've read all
It's-
the information that we've been provided.
And I want to know then if we're not reading it in response and support, it would have been nice if we got some answers to the questions that we submitted in November so that we could have.
And it
we
would
could
be
have had
nice
talked a
if
little bit more about
the board would take consideration into what they've told you and listen to it. I'm a taxpayer. These guys are all volunteers.
Once again, we'll call for a vote. I need a motion in a second.
Let's see.
Request to increase benefit.
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend that we deny the request to increase the benefit amount as requested in writing here, as presented.
I'll second.
All those, any further discussion amongst the council? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried. Good. I'd like to see you on the ballot, Joe.
Yep, you sure will.
Thank you. Good. That's fine. Huh?
And you do that.
Oh, 5-minute recess.
I'd like to make, can we just take it? Okay.
Yeah. Are we ready? Okay. Item number 3, agreement for professional services between the city of Nisswa and the Bladek. Brainerd Lakes Area Development Association. Okay.
This is our annual agreement with Bladek. The amount has been included in our budget, so this is just annual process we go through to approve it.
I make a motion that we approve the agreement for professional services with the city of Nisswa and Bladek as presented.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item number 4. This is the second amended and restated lease agreement between the city of Nisswa and Schaefer's of Nisswa Limited Partnership. This is for the spirits, I believe.
Yes.
Tom?
Okay, so this is, we're already 5 years down the track from when we negotiated this last time, which seemed like it went real fast to me. This conversation's been ongoing with the Schaefer's group for a few months now, thanks to Jenny and Ross and Brian Farrell for heading up that discussion with the Schaefer ownership group to get this done. What you're looking at here is basically a mirror image of what the current lease looks like, but for the following highlight changes. First of all, the previous was a 5-year extension. This is now a 7-year. There's also built in here an option for an additional 7-year term at the pleasure of the city for a deadline just before it expires. There's also an option to terminate early in the odd event that the city would stop doing business at that location. So that's built in, and also carrying forward from the previous example is also sort of right of first refusal, so to speak, for Schaefer's to have consideration for a license there were the city to stop doing business there. That has always existed. This early out is a new feature. The new lease amount is based on the same formula as the carryover from the previous extension, which is an evaluation of prior year's CPI. And so it basically amounts to about a $675 a month increase over the life of the 7-year term here. And then the same sort of escalator evaluation is built in if the city decides to option a 7-year extension in 2029. We'll look back at the CPI for the previous 7 years, do a calculation, and you'll have a new lease term and a new lease amount. As I said, other than that, everything else in here is a mirror image of the previous.
Did you have anything to add, or?
I'll just say thanks to Councilmember Krautkramer for getting the ball rolling with this, and for Tom for working through the calculations and getting the details completed with the Schaefer's. I'm happy that we're not doing this at the last minute, so I think that's worked out really well.
Good.
Well, then I'd like to make a recommendation that we go ahead and approve the second amended and restated lease agreement between the city of Nisswa and Schaefer's of Nisswa Limited Partnership as presented.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? On item 5, Greater Minnesota Regional Park and Trails Commission Grant Contract Agreement.
I can take this one. This is the document that comes from the state to basically officially award the legacy grant funds for the city. So this is a good step forward for Amber and for the Go Lake Trail project. We thought it would be appropriate, considering the size of the grant, that we would bring it to the council for approval. And they're aware of where we're at with our project and how things are going, and things are moving forward. So just wanted to get the council's approval on this document itself.
I mean, that's a lot of money. 2.434 million. But one question I did have, that we're gonna have a cash match of $608,730. It might not be at this time to really talk about that, but is there any ideas of how that might be divvied up between the two of us or any
Yes,
discussions on that?
it is already itemized as far as the dollars that Nisswa has committed and the dollars that Lakeshore has committed. So in
Okay.
total, we pulled it together, but yes.
So
we
that's
have that.
already hashed out.
Yes.
Okay. And I'd like to make a motion that we, let's see. Yeah, that we approve the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Commission, that grant contract agreement as presented.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Change order number 12 in the amount of $6,465.77 from Eagle Construction for the 2020 wastewater treatment facility improvements.
Yeah, this is for the, I guess the bituminous added to the, by the truck turning area for MnDOT pit, and then the boiler was changed.
Okay.
So they're going to the roof side.
Okay.
And this will be the final change order because the final pay request will come as our next item.
All right.
I make a motion that we go ahead and approve the change order number 12 in the amount of $6,465.70 from Construction for the wastewater treatment improvement as presented.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There we go. Final payment application number 7 for Eagle Construction, $39,465.77 for the wastewater treatment facility. Are there any punch list left items, Joe?
I think there are some items that will be taken care of in the spring. This is more of a bookkeeping final. I don't think we'll still hold back final.
Yes, we will hold retainage until spring. We're requesting the amount from the PFA that we need now so that we can close out the project with the PFA. So this will be the last pay request. And as when the council makes a motion, if you can approve the pay request for the amount as presented and also include that the city considers the wastewater treatment facility project complete. The PFA requested that be in the minutes for their records.
Completing a project too, it doesn't negate the warranty or responsibility for that contractor. So if there's a punch list.
So we're just closing out the books at this point.
It's the.
Yeah, and then the final punch list and the final amount will be paid after that.
That'll be taken care of still.
Okay. Well, then
Yep.
if there's no further discussion, I'll just go ahead and make the motion that we make the final payment application number 17 from Eagle Construction for $39,465.77 for the wastewater improvements as presented.
And can we add to that?
It's closing out the books.
And consider the project complete.
Consider the project closed.
Yeah, okay, that way we'll consider the project closed then.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Fire service contract discussions with the city of Breezy Point. Do you want to?
Yeah, I can start this off a little bit. I know that you have had some conversations as well, Mayor Ryan. So back a couple of months ago, we discussed the conceptual idea of working with the city of Breezy Point to provide fire service to them. Their council has approved moving forward to work with the city of Nisswa to negotiate a fire service contract. The last meeting that Fire Chief Sean Bailey and I had with the city of Breezy, city administrator and mayor, we said that we would be able to provide a short-term service contract with them. Long-term, we didn't feel like it would be a really great fit for us as a city with our service contracts, but if there was a need right now, we would be happy to assist. And so that's what they'd like to move forward with at this time. Based on their current contracts and kind of how fire service works, they would need a 1-year lead time if we weren't to renew the contract after 1 year. And so essentially would plan for a 2-year, providing them service for 2 years. If we do it for 1 year and then give them notice at the end of 1 year that we wouldn't renew it, then they would have time to work out their new plan. They're aware of that and understand that if they were to come up with a new solution in a shorter time frame, we wouldn't hold them to that 1 year. It's not for us, it's more for them. But what we'd like to do is continue to work with them on specifics, cost details, those kinds of things. So by no stretch is this done. We would bring something back more specific in a contract form for the council to consider either February or March.
And when would the contract start?
It would start April 1st, 2023.
Okay.
Because they need to give a 1-year notice to the city of Pequot Lakes.
Yeah.
And they're still talking with them a bit as well. So there's a lot happening still, and we're flexible depending on how that plays out too. But wanting to make sure, just as a point of reference for the council, that you're still supportive of this. And if you are, we'll bring forward a contract draft for you soon.
So what we're trying to prove here is just that we authorize the mayor and city administrator to negotiate that service contract.
Yes, to create that work with them, make sure we're all in agreement. It's based off of tax values, so there's not a lot of, getting creative with the numbers. It's using that as a reference and then doing the formula from there. But yes, we would work on those details and bring back a document for the council.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion that we go ahead and approve to authorize the mayor and city administrator to negotiate a fire service contract with the city of Breezy Point.
I'll second.
As presented, yeah.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Feasibility report for lift station number 12, sanitary sewer service study. Joe?
Yeah, a few months back, we were asked to do a lift station study in a service area. The service area was from 77 County Road 13, and then south to where they meet down by the, I'm kind of losing me on that.
Joe,
Wanna say hole in the day.
can I just ask, is your microphone on?
Oh, yeah, it is on.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, I'll move it forward. And then each direction, east and west. Anyways, there was some discussion about a lot of developments that have been coming in and requests for that. The city before this had been using a lot of step stations, and I think there's Mark had talked, there's about 100 of them. And smaller lines and smaller lift stations and more of them. So the idea was that since this is kind of a area that is going to develop, it's set to that we take a look at a centralized lift station to handle both the whole area, both the east side and the west side of 371. So we went and looked at that and did some evaluation on, I guess would be the ERCs and the total pumping. Basically, it came down to about 38,250 gallons per day would be what would be the build out on this area for sanitary sewer service. So we looked at the growth trends and took, because of the COVID, we went back and we looked at 2019, all 3 years, 2019, 2020, and partial 2021. and tried to get a correlation to what was going, how that was going to expand and the growth would be. In looking at that, we also looked at where the plant was with the design that we had. Ultimately, the design would be that could be taken to 85 million gallons a year. 90% build out would be about 67.5. So we used the 43.1 million gallons per year that was discussed in 2019 as 2020 went down and 2021 wasn't finished. But the trend was that it was going to be matching the 2019. So with that and a 90% capacity, it brings it about 67.5 million gallons. We kind of extrapolated that, and I used 2% instead of, I used a 1 on the bottom of page 4. If you're looking, there's a graph there or a chart. 1% to 3% took 2%. So, it brings us out to about a 2042 build out on the capacity being added for that. And then the next thing was to try to cite where that would be. If you drive down 371, you can see the lowest point there. Then it goes back up to hit where the church is. That also happened to be where the Schaefer development at one time was pretty close to that, to where they wanted to put the lift station just for that site. But we've moved it down south and closer to 371 so that we could handle the jacking underneath 371 and do the capacity on the west side. Eventually make that connection. We also looked at what the flows would tolerate. You have 2 lift stations, main lift stations, one which is off of Hazelwood Drive and just by the bridge, and the second one was just redone, lift station number 3 in Grandview. Those are the 2 that basically take all the effluent, pumps it to the wastewater treatment plant, the only 2. So we looked at lift station number 1, and what happens is that on Smiley Road, right by the roadhouse, that's where the final gravity manhole is, and it's only about 6 foot, 7 foot deep, but we're not, it can't go any farther south with gravity. So, there is a need for that whole area that would have to pump either way. So with setting a lift station there, we looked at the flows and when it was designed for, because all that goes to lift station number 1. We looked at all the flows going there and address the flows for full capacity and with the build out of this area, the study area. And that is slated to get revamped in probably 10 to 12 years, which would be a good time. We would know by then what the flows are coming out of the lift station. But the total ultimate flow coming out of that lift station that is proposed, lift station number 12, can ultimately go through 1 if it's increased. The pumps are increased or the impellers are changed. So that would be, that's a 6-inch main that goes over to wastewater treatment facility. So that'd be able to handle all those flows. So at one time we were looking at also maybe using a force main that would go underneath 371 and then travel over the lift station and connect to maybe the lines for number 3. But it turns out that that can handle the flows with that. So.
Yeah, it can.
So with that, was kind of looked at with where that lift station would be placed, which is what we just discussed, and then I guess the project cost, looking at that, go over that a little bit too. I looked at an estimate. Obviously, this would have to go into the design stage, but about $612,000 for that lift station, today's dollars. And then the access road that we would need to access that lift station, $61,000. And then the trunk sanitary sewer line that we'd need would be a 4-inch that'll go over to the manhole there on Smiley Road, which is a 4-inch line to go to that manhole coming from the lift station. And then we'd have some 10-inch line for trunk main. This is not including any jacking that go into 371. This is just for the east side at this time. And then enough line that would gravity to go up and service the initial proposed development that we have out there. None of it is written down yet for sure, but it's kind of the direction of that. So the trunk sanitary sewer, about 251,000. The force main, I have force main is 6-inch, and that's a typo. It should be 4, excuse me. And then $247,000. Now what this does is we're going to have a projected ERCs of 260 ERCs, and that's for both sides for the total area build out.
Now, you just mentioned a 10-inch line, because I noticed that on page 6 here.
Yep.
The trunk line, and then that was going where again? If
That line would come out of the lift station.
Of
That'd be a new
Station
line.
12?
Yeah.
New
So
line?
we'll take a 10-inch line out of the lift station that'll, for the first 150, 200, or probably 400 feet. And then there'll be a 10-inch line that would eventually go underneath 371. And those are the trunk lines. Number one, we can keep them flat. Number two, that's where all the main flow would come to.
Because this is 6 to 8 inch.
Oh,
But there's
Yeah.
no, going under 371 would be a future ID.
that's the future.
That's the
But we're-
future. Okay, yeah.
We plan for that, and that's kind of why the lift station's put at
Okay,
371. So if there's a jacking, you'd have to have room for the pit and to go underneath, of course, to go underneath 371.
Yep.
And then it would be, not make sense to put a smaller line in there to just make sure we can handle the flows.
Okay.
10-inch. And then there's some 8-inch line that would go up to service the initial developments that's happening.
and so reading through this, it sounds like even with all the future development here, it may very well handle it. Very
Yeah,
well.
they're, well, you know, the depth of it's about 34 feet, and that's so that we can spider out as far as we need to go on both areas. Now, you go down by the lake towards the east side, and obviously there would be some minor areas, some small
Mhm.
isolated areas that would probably need a pumping structure, a lift station of some kind, but nothing to the extent of what they've been doing over the years now. Just as a side to it, I've talked about we're doing a water study too. Right now, we're still kind of waiting for some information to come back. But that is kind of tied into this too, that for the development and bringing water to this area, if that happens to be what the council decides they want to do after we put that study together.
Yeah.
It looks like it's going to be some pretty normal treatment, and things look nothing out of the ordinary. So for that right now, but we have to get the test in so we can finalize that. So you guys got any questions about that lift station or the service area?
What if, I know this is preliminary, but if you were to move forward with this, what type of a completion are we talking? What type of a time frame from start to finish?
And I
Like the end of
I
next
have
year.
that in there too, but it would, depending on when we were, if and when you're directed to do that. And I think trying to make that work out with any kind of the development that would take place.
Okay.
I think with some small intermittent, if that would happen to go real fast, the development on their end, I think we can make that in by end of August, middle of August, have this completed. If that was to move forward in the next couple of months.
And if we can get the materials.
And you know, you read that, didn't you?
Yeah.
There's well, we all know what it's
Yeah.
like right now. So
Right.
you know, a lot of the materials are fuel orientated. And so a lot of that's been siding, plastics, all that. So I think that it would be okay, but there could be some delays. It's just like the stock market. You can't project that too far.
Anyone have any questions for Joe?
No. That's
Okay,
very good.
thank you, sir.
Yep.
Number 11, recommendation, or excuse me, number 10, memo from city administrator reference development planning.
Thank you. So this topic kind of piggybacks off of Joe's presentation of the Lift Station 12 study. Something that I have had a few conversations with Mayor Ryan about, but thought it would be appropriate to bring to the council is the broader discussion about development planning and how the council would like staff to approach working with developers on the large task of adding infrastructure in areas within our city that currently does not have infrastructure. Sewer would be one in some of our commercial areas, and then the potential of new roads is another big question. And so I provided a copy of our assessment policy for your reference, and that was updated last May. And then whether we want to do this tonight, I'll leave it up to the council how far into the conversation you want to go, just because we have a couple of council members absent. But looking to get some consensus from the council on how we'd like to approach this development process, because we have a couple of projects coming up soon. I expect this winter yet. And I want to be as consistent as possible with this, with whatever developments come, next month or in 2 months, and the same, ones that come in the next year to 5 years. I think that would be fair and appropriate to say here, what is our structure and what is our process? For example, if there are new roads in the conversation with a development project, is that going to be something that the city says we require the developer to just pay for the road to our standard and then we take it over and maintain in perpetuity? Or do we look at building the road, assessing the cost back to the benefiting property owners over X amount of years? So there's some options there, but it becomes logistics challenging for staff to figure out how and when those things happen. And so those are some of the big questions that I wanted to get some feedback from the council on. I don't know if I'm thinking exactly how I want to maybe ask questions to get some feedback, but I kind of phrased it in my memo. And so I wanted to just introduce the topic and maybe get some initial feedback, and I'm happy to.
I know that we talked a lot about this on the roads, especially at the Public Works Commission or the committee. And we wanted to make sure that, the problem is when you have a developer comes in and they don't make it to the code that we need it to be at, if we were to take it over in the future, then we're stuck with making those improvements. And that should not be something that the city should have to take on. There are a couple of places around Nisswa where the roads do not meet our specifications, like for snow plowing and for whatever requirements that we need. And then the local citizens there want us to take that road over so that we plow it for them, but we can't because it doesn't meet our spec. We can't get the snow up high enough. The roads aren't made that way. So this is something that I think that was very important, and we all, at least on the Public Works Division, this committee decided that this should be done. That we should go ahead and have some clear requirements to the city requirements that any developers that come and to make it to that way. But we really didn't talk that much about how to fund that, whether to have the developer do this or we do this and assess it.
Right. Yes.
Right. So that's the other.
That's the next question. So we did develop new road standards
right
that are in place now, which is a great first step. But then, yes, it's sort of whose responsibility is it to establish that and to, deal with the upfront costs of that, issuing bonds, all those things.
Yeah, to me, it's more like I was the opinion that we should at least try to have the developer do that and assess that to the cost of the property, the house. That's just me talking. That's not the public works, but me.
Sure, yeah.
Well, I can see, as we discussed before, that the developer take the cost on to building the roads there, but I know there can be some situations where that might be a little daunting for some developments. So I'd be up to entertaining the city bonding that and then having them repay, pay back through the assessments per property. That way, we make sure that they're built to our regulations, standards. But I don't know if that's is that universal or is it on basis? How do we look at that?
I think the main thing is we never have had assessments. We don't do that here currently.
Correct.
And the question is whether you want to get into that.
Right.
To do assessments on a certain particular area
Yeah.
or the whole city, the ones that are affected only.
Well, I think there's a difference between the council at the time, because assessments was 4 years ago was a big thing we were talking about.
Right.
I think there's a difference between, I think at the time myself anyway, I should say, there's a difference between assessing the property or assessing it to build a new road so they can start their development and let them pay that assessment off versus bonding for rebuilding roads and infrastructure that we typically do. And, the problem is if you start it with one, then, what's that criteria supposed to be? Where are you going to be at with it? You do it over here for this, at this time. So I don't know. But I just want to, again, reading the staff requests or what the staff thinks and stuff. I do have a hard time trying to figure out, okay, why am I building a road? I mean, I think there's a difference too, like, for example, north and south Sibley or north and south Smiley. We don't have a choice. We're going to have to move those intersections, and that's incumbent upon us. How do we do it? That's one thing. But I own 100 acres or whatever, and I'm going to develop it, and I need to get there. Then you should figure that into your cost as you go in there. And we did change our policy as far as road specs go. Tom?
I'll just tell you that although I haven't been in this conversation, another municipal client has been recently where they struggled with the idea of a plat application and what the road spec was going to be, what the road surface was going to be, and the developer complaining about the idea that it should be required as part of that plat process to put bituminous down on the road. The argument being, let me just sell the lots out, and at some point, if people want to, then they can seek to, or the city wants to, then the city can go ahead and do a statute 429 process for an assessment, which really struck me as backward. To let people buy into a plat expecting that they've got certain maintenance and certain road quality, only to find out that they don't because it got done on the cheap, and then they're going to get it later in a 429 process that a lot of times is more expensive, is expensive for the city, hard to pass on. And so if anybody's asking me about that, it's always, I think, just like everything we do here, right? It's whatever the current application is and what that looks like and what makes sense. But from a general perspective, it's hard for a developer, in my opinion, to say, I don't want to front the money to build the right roads here. We'll let somebody else some other time worry about that, including the city and including the residents who are going to get nailed with an assessment. That's a tough deal. So you need to be thinking about that in the context of all of this.
That was the main discussion we had.
Was it?
Public work, yeah.
Yeah.
So how does that work, Tom? If I'm the developer and the city says, well, we'll assess your property for the development, for the building of the road. And
Well,
then you pass.
It won't go like that, John. What'll
right.
happen, yeah, what'll happen is it'll get platted and it'll get whatever it's done. And at some point, there'll be a process where there's a petition or the
Right.
city will decide to initiate that.
So the only other, so basically the only, it's not like I can assess each lot and sell you the lot with the assessment attached to it.
Oh, I don't.
No,
that's- that's
I
not the
mean,
way
that would,
go.
I mean,
No.
so really there's, I think, I'm just, if
Yeah.
I want to develop something, then that's part of the deal.
Right.
I gotta build it up to the spec.
Because if you go ahead and plat it out that way, you're gonna have to tear that whole thing up and then redo it again the right way.
I think, and wasn't that the reason why we changed the regulations, that the developers need to build the roads to our specifications? And I think that's what we should stick with, and that through the development, they should build those roads.
Yeah.
Bituminous, the whole 9 yards. Those were some of the discussions last fall.
Yes, but the question is that financial burden on the developer up front, or if they ask the city to build the road, bond it, and assess back over a certain period of time, that's where I get concerned, because how many road projects could there potentially be? How much is that, as opposed to saying this is just the cost of the development project itself, and that's what the city would require.
Right,
Um,
and that could be a huge bond that the city would. Yeah.
Right.
I just think that my opinion, if I were to look at it, I'd just say each individual, the developer needs to pay for the cost up front.
Well, the obvious problem with that is, or the attractiveness is, you can offer lots for sale for less, right?
Mhm.
And then people get in there and then they realize they don't like what they got for a road. And so now it's gonna get more
Yep.
expensive than it would have been if it had been done front end. It's just a
Right.
bad,
I think it needs to be
it's a
done.
bad
up
way
front.
for the consumer on those things.
I think, two is having, we've had this kind of discussion a little bit too, is having a plan. That's where this started with the study area and the service roads that we're talking about, the backage roads that we're talking about. And when the city has a plan that's laid out as like the desired area for where a road needs to go through, this backage road, let's just take the one on the east side here. Then the developer sees that's part of what he's got planned for.
Yeah.
And I've been in cities too where they don't have a problem that the cost that, obviously the cost up front for somebody buying a house and the lot is more because the developer has to put those costs for that road into that development. So if you've got the backage road that's, let's just take the backage road on the east side. If it's laid out and the city has a plan for it, the developer knows that if he's gonna develop this area and part of his property or whatever is gonna be along that road, that there's gonna be an assessment for that road that he needs to put into his lots now.
Right, right.
Okay, and in order for him to, that kind of, the other thing is, if you do this leapfrogging all the time, I want to develop over here and I want to develop over here, and it's not kind of, done in orderly fashion, that as they develop, these roads can be built, that, as part of that development, otherwise you get scattered roads that are coming through this development and it has no place to connect. There's no rhyme or reason to it, because each property that's developing can, make adjustments to fit within the overall game plan of the city if they have that laid out. But yeah, it can be done different ways.
Does that help you?
I was the planning and zoning in St. Joseph, and they ended up getting back a development that the private developer did it, walked away from the works, not the cost that they have every month for their private development, and the city it didn't. The water wasn't correct, the sewer wasn't correct. The roads were not to standard, and the city spent a lot of money just to bring that back up in order for them to not have an area that's sitting.
Did that answer your questions?
It does. It sounds like the council as a whole is supportive of ensuring that's incorporated into the development approval process.
Yeah.
I think the new lift station potential is something that we want to work on and make sure we, construct it appropriately. We're planning for the costs and the hookup costs the way we need to. There will still be some developer requirement likely for upfront money to help with that, but definitely from a road perspective, that helps. So I appreciate that. I'll bring any other questions or concerns forward if they come up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item number 11, recommendation for Parks Commission member appointment. Here we go. So it looks at, we have a Paul Soderlund, which would be approved for a 4-year term on the Parks Commission starting February 1, 2022.
Yes,
Okay.
Amber's very excited about this recommendation and looking forward hopefully to bring him on to the commission.
I'd like to recommend that we go ahead and approve Paul Sutherland for a 4-year term on the Parks Commission, starting February 1st, as presented.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Memo from the Gull Lake Trail appraisal. Want to touch on that?
So in your packet, I did a quick cover memo, but Tom may be able to help a little bit more. We need to go through an appraisal process for the Gull Lake Trail to acquire the land we need from, I don't know, a half a dozen to 10 properties. So this is the proposal we received and looking for approval. I think some of this will be figure out as we need, depending on the type of property. That's correct.
Yeah, so there's 11 parcels that need to have some level of acquisition for the trail. This appraiser will go through now. If you make a motion tonight to approve engaging her, then she's trying to give you some rough idea about what your cost will be. My rough calculations based on what she's got here is most of these will be these are called MDVs. That's probably about 7 of the properties. The more complex stuff is possible for a few of those parcels. This looks like about a $25,000 bill roughly at the top, worst case scenario. They won't know until they get out and do some site evaluations and meet with the residents if they want to, which of these they'll have to do, what the whole composite will be. But once they get those reports done, then those will go to me and we will work with, all of us as staff will work with, to make direct purchase offers to the landowners of these parcels. Ideally, we'll be able to complete direct purchase offers with all of them and get deeded easements for what we need here. In the event that we can't for any or some of them, then there's a court process that you're probably aware of. It's called condemnation, which we would enter into for any that we can't acquire by direct purchase. The appraisals support not just the direct purchase process, but also anything that we need to do in condemnation.
Mhm.
So you need a motion from us to go ahead and move forward with the
Yeah,
appraisal process.
I'll make the motion that we go ahead and approve the appraisal services for the Gull Lake Trail project as presented.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Is there?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed.
Yeah.
Old business, Sourcewell Board of Directors, voting information and ballot. This was at the last meeting, but we only had 3 people there. So we wanted to hold off till we had everybody and we're at 3 people. So we're everybody. So our options are we can do nothing. Or we can cast a vote for the city for one of the 2 parties for the Sourcewell Board of Directors. So I will let it, you guys, what do you want to do?
Does it cause a problem if we wait another month or what?
The ballots are due February 1st.
Yep.
So it's
Yes, it
tonight
does.
or we don't, which is,
I guess then we should move ahead with it.
Those are our choices. We can either do it or not. So then the question is, who of the 2? Steve Barrows is
Right.
Crow Wing County. Correct?
Correct.
And Bill Stearns is Morrison,
Wadena.
Wadena.
Yeah.
That was close.
So I guess I would suggest we go ahead and I would approve for Steve Barrows. I'd vote for him, put him in.
Yes, I was reading through both, and that's who I was looking at also.
Okay.
Can I consider that a motion?
A motion that we go ahead and as a council and vote for Steve Barrows
Yes.
as presented.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mayor, council reports, mayor report. I have nothing. Mark?
Parks and Rec has been working very hard on the replacement. I know the feasibility study came in from American Ice. There's some people may see the numbers and just be aghast, but it needs to be done. I think they're moving ahead with the February meeting to finalize, finalize what the replacement will look like.
What the recommendation will be?
Right, because they can mix and
Yeah.
match. They don't have to pick just one thing, so, and, but I give them, I appreciate all the work they've done on that.
And the Public Works Committee didn't meet last month, so we'll be meeting in another week from now, so we'll have more of that.
And if there's nothing else, I
Okay.
will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Where's that dog? What's that? Yeah, where's that dog?